typically they're the ones who are going to be ready to go and be ready to take the Masters. So here's how you can watch it. So we got round 3 today. Starts at 3 o'clock to 7:30. That's on CBS with Jim Nance. Tomorrow, CBS, 2 to 7 p.m. Yeah, I just pretty much told you what I'm going to be doing for the next 2 days. All right, I'll do some laundry. I'll do some dishes. I'll make some food. I'll drink some beer. But on my TV, it's going to be the Masters. You can also watch it. You can listen to it on Westwood One and Sirius XM. Find it on your particular channels there. You can watch the Masters live stream on the range, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can watch some featured groups there. Amen Corner. That's my favorite spot. I mean, I know a lot of people like different spots in the Masters and on Augusta. You know, digressing again, that is just one of the most beautiful places on earth. Well, I used to, when I was in the Army, I was stationed in Augusta, Georgia for a brief time, and they had a charity golf, and it wasn't the Masters. It was just something kind of leading up to that, and I had an opportunity to play in that charity golf tournament there. Certainly, by no means the level that was going to happen a few weeks after I was there, but just to walk those hallowed grounds of Augusta, Georgia is just something incredibly special. Joining us now, well, he's special, but that's for another reason. Matthew Hicks, how are you, sir?
Very well. How are you?
Hey, you know, we thought we would try to do the show all day today in the Jim Nance voice, but I don't know, it probably wouldn't have worked out. You know, nestled in top the western suburbs of Indianapolis is a show like none other. The Balance. Taking the mic now is Tom Marquis. Hi, my friends. I'm Jim Nance. I tell you what, though, I was just talking a little bit about how awesome and how special the Masters is, and how, you know, Tiger's back, but we just as sports fans, we don't let them age. We don't let them, and he's back. It's good to see him back on the course, but we got to be real with ourselves. I don't know that he's back to win a Masters. If he does, my God, fantastic. Hats off to him. What are your thoughts about this year's Masters? We'll get into some NBA playoff talk here in a minute. But, of course, it's the Masters, kind of the overall theme. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, you talk about Tiger, and two thoughts come to my mind when I think about Tiger Woods. One is, you know, he was so good he became the villain, right? I mean, you kind of got, well, at least I did. Maybe not everybody did, but you kind of got sick of him winning at some point. You're kind of thinking, okay, we get it. You're the best ever. And you were always looking for, whether it was Phil or whoever, a challenger, you know, right? Who can stand up to this amazing golfer on Sunday? And then, you know, you found Phil for a while, and others, of course. But then, you know, the fall from grace and you know, he has obviously the issues in his personal life. And then you kind of, at least myself, you kind of find yourself like, oh, my gosh, what an amazing story as he kind of continues this very long road to come back. He had the one decent season and then was injured again. But as far as winning a major again, I'm with you. I mean, he could. I mean, obviously, he's only one shot off the lead going into day 3. But I'm not sure he has that in him. It's the stamina that at this point I question. I think he can have 2 or maybe even 3 really good rounds. I'm not sure at this point in his age he can have 4 good enough rounds to compete with these athletes. These athletes are as good of athletes as he is, and now superior. That was his advantage. He was an athletic specimen in his day. But now it's obviously everybody's caught up to him. You know, it's the same thing with his long ball. He would outdrive 3/4 of the field, and now everybody, you know, really everybody's right with him or even longer than him now. So it is one of those things, but you do kind of, at least I do, find myself kind of rooting for the guy now. It's like, wow, what an amazing thing at his age to be where he is. And, you know, we'll see at 2 o'clock today if he can stick with it. I tell you what, though, if he's within a stroke tomorrow, I sure wouldn't bet against him. I'll say that.
You can never say within a stroke in the same sentence with Tiger Woods. I'm just saying.
Good point.
You can't do that, Matt. You know better than this. You're right though. 205 he tees off with Ian Poehler. Then 215 Justin Harding and Zofoli, Xander Zofoli. I tell you what. Golfers' names are getting about as hard to pronounce as IndyCar drivers. But and then at 225 Justin Johnson. And Louis Ocean, that name. Here's the guy.
Yeah.
Here's the guy. I don't know if you've been watching it throughout the week, but this is the guy that I've got my eyes on. And really, if you wanted to say, hey, nice, safe, nice, conservative bet, never won before, it's hard to win your first Masters. I think we got plenty of people that can attest to that. That's why it's so special. But Brooks Koepka. What are your thoughts about him?
Koepka. Yeah, Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
He's kind of my pick at this point if I had to pick one. So much, and it really is today and the second half of tomorrow. Today separates the men from the boys, typically, So if Brooks can stay right there, it'll be his tournament to lose going into tomorrow. But we've seen here in recent years so many people have that 2 or 3 stroke lead on Sunday morning, only to find themselves in the middle of the pack by the time the day ends. You almost want to be 2 strokes off, the pace, and then come back on Sunday to win the thing. And I think that Brooks Koepka has an excellent shot. Dustin Johnson is playing about as good as golf as anybody right now. And you know what? Don't count out Phil. I mean, Phil is, he's an older guy, but he's only a few strokes off the lead, and this is a course he knows very well. Obviously, of course, everybody does. But I don't count anybody really out within 3 or 4 strokes. I mean, 5 you start to have some issues. In other words, the guys that are only 1 under and even, I don't think like Bubba can come back in two rounds and win this thing. But there's a lot of guys that would not at all surprise me. Ian Poulter is another guy that would not surprise me. He's standing at the top at the end of the day. So yeah, it'll be a good, entertaining couple days of golf, and really we'll have a much obviously clearer picture tomorrow.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. Another name that you didn't mention maybe is kind of a dark horse or a horse to watch, and that's Jason Day. He did well, and he comes from that pack in that first round where they say if you're in this pack of between 6 and 8 in the first round, you're going to be between 1 and 6 in the last round. Historically, that's just how it's played out. So we'll see what happens. Tiger comes into the weekend with 1 stroke back, so certainly going to be a star-packed weekend. And the Masters again, like I was talking to a friend last night. I told her it's like the Daytona 500. It's like the Indy 500. It's like the World Series. It's like the Super Bowl. It is the pinnacle of their sport, and to win that green jacket is incredible. So it's going to be fun to watch this weekend. Well, let's get into it. NBA playoffs. I know you always help me play the homer card, and I much appreciate it. But there is more than the Pacers in the NBA playoffs. We'll get to that. But why not start with the Pacers? We got to start somewhere. Pacers haven't been there in a couple of years. They managed to get there pretty much without Owen Depot. And so a new face with the Pacers. It comes with some challenges. But with Marcus Smart out with the Boston Celtics, which is their key guy. That's their guy. I mean, the Indiana Pacers are very much strategically positioned to win round 1. If they do, and I know that's a big if, and I know they have a big challenge. So I know that's the homer card, but if they beat the Pacers, their road to the finals gets a little bit easier if we look at the way things should play out. But there again, it's the playoffs, and nothing ever happens the way that you plan it to happen.
Boy, I wish, Tom, I really want to sit here and agree with everything you just said, but I just can't.
Well, go ahead. I'm the host.
That's
what you're supposed to do.
I don't think the Pacers are playing very well right now at all. I think they might win a game or 2 in this series, but the reality of it is, unless things really fall, and I mean really fall well for them, I don't see them advancing in this series. Tyreek Evans is the X factor squared, cubed, whatever you want to say. As he goes, this team is going to go in the playoffs. If he is a guy that can give them 12 to 16 points off the bench, they have a half a chance to win this series. The reality of it is Kyrie Irving is the superior player on the court. And I have no disrespect to any of those Pacers. They're all fine players. And there are a couple of all-stars on that Pacer team that have not been rewarded with that honor yet. They will be all, like, Bojan Bogdanovic, to me, is an all-star. Miles Turner might be the defensive player of the year. But the reality of it is, from a clutch standpoint, Kyrie Irving in a close game is a guy that can only be matched by Victor Oladipo. And Vic's out. He's not going to play, obviously, in this playoffs. Hopefully he's back in time for camp. But the reality of it is, I just don't think that they had such a terrible March. I just don't see it, and I don't mean that as a disrespect. I mean, I don't mean that to take away from the accomplishment of what they did this season, because they got to realize not only did they not have Vic down the stretch for the last 40 some odd games, they missed him for 12 games before that too. So I mean, well more than half the season they didn't have their best player, and here they are, the 5th seed in the East, and if they'd played a little bit better in March, they would have been the 4th seed. So the accomplishment is great, and I think you don't compare apples to oranges. Last season was last season, and yes, they should have beat Cleveland in the first round of the playoffs. They should have. They were the better team. But it always comes down to this in the NBA, it seems like. They have Kyrie Irving, and you don't. They had LeBron James last year, and you don't. And if they were to get to the second round, Milwaukee has Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you don't. I just think that's the issue here with this particular Pacer team. Without Oladipo, I just can't. I would love. I mean, obviously, listen. I can say this now. I don't really work in the media anymore. I'm a Pacer fan. I'm a season ticket holder. I have a 10-game package. I love the Pacers. I want them to do well. I'm just not overly optimistic, and I'll be rooting like heck for them tomorrow afternoon.
Well, let's kind of get into some of these other games, and let's go over to Brooklyn. I mean, obviously a guy we know well here in Indianapolis who did well for himself, Michael Grady, who's with the Yes Network, the Nets, Brooklyn Nets, and I believe he's getting ready to start his own radio show too on Fox, I think. But either which way, certainly very well accomplished. But we know him very well from here in Indianapolis. But certainly, as talking about his tweet on the 10th of April, said special night. Nets finished the season 500 above for the first time since 2014. Obviously, the Nets take on the Philadelphia 76ers. Got to trust the process. Does the process continue in round one, or do the Nets continue their momentum in round one?
Well, okay. To me, when you look at these first-round matchups, this is one that, I mean, listen, the reality of it is there probably aren't going to be a lot of upsets in this first round. That being said, this is one that is intriguing to me depending on how much time Joel Embiid misses. Without Joel Embiid, this is a decent matchup for Brooklyn. I think this could be potentially a long series. Here's why I favor Philadelphia. I would assume that Embiid comes back at some point in this series, and I don't think the 76ers lose a game with Embiid, a healthy Embiid, in the lineup. Now, if he's half, 50% or 75%, maybe that's different. But this, to me, is I'm looking forward to this game today because I think Brooklyn can sneak one out in Philadelphia. Doesn't sound like Embiid's going to play. So this is an intriguing matchup. I think this could be the upset of the playoffs. And, boy, what a disappointing thing for Philadelphia. I mean, they went all in with Jimmy Butler, and they make the big trade for Tobias Harris, and they're all in on this. And the reality of it is, at full strength, they're probably the best. I don't want to discount Toronto too much, but they're probably the best challenge to Milwaukee in this whole thing. So it's interesting, certainly.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. I wanted to digress a little bit just because we got a lot to kind of talk about with the NBA. Dwayne Wade retires. I mean, like him or not like him, he's certainly one of the greats. We see, and by the way, just pointing this out. If you missed, you can YouTube it. But if you missed his final introduction at home in Miami from his son, it'll